name is Vicki Perk. I am a senior research associate here at Cutter. I am also currently the vice chair of the TRB Committee on Transit Capacity and Quality of Service, which is responsible for this manual and its future updates. So I will be your moderator today, and I would like to now introduce Alan Danaher, an assistant vice president in the Transit and Rail Systems Group with WSP USA in Orlando, Florida. He has over 40 years of experience in transportation and transit planning and engineering, with a specialty in bus rapid transit and transit priority and ITS systems. His experience includes both consulting as well as tenures with 2 transit agencies, the Denver Regional Transit District and TriMet in Portland, Oregon. Alan currently is an emeritus member of TRB and previously chaired the TRB Committee on Transit Capacity and Quality of Service. He served as principal investigator for the first 2 editions of the Transit Capacity and Quality of Service Manual and is a co-investigator for this 3rd edition. He also served as PI for the TCRP BRT Practitioner's Guide and Synthesis on Bus and Rail Transit Priority Treatments in Mixed Traffic, and currently is PI in the development of a national guidebook on fixed route bus reliability through TCRP. He also has chaired the Institute of Transportation Engineers Transit Council and is currently a member of ITE's Complete Streets Council. He also served as senior advisor on the National Association of City Transportation Officials Transit Street Design Guide. And with that, Alan, we look forward to your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Vicki. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. So I will be providing an overview of the Transit Capacity and Quality of Service Manual in this presentation. It's also effectively known as the TCQSM. This has been a document that has been out there over the last 20 years and really is an exciting information source for the transit industry. What I want to do today is to talk a little bit about what is the manual, what are the key concepts included in the document, provide an overview of all of the chapters, and then focus in on chapters 2 and 3, which talk about in a little more depth operational and quality of service concepts. We'll mention that related to each of the chapters there is a separate PowerPoint presentation which Cutter will have up on their website, so you'll have access to many more slides and much more information beyond this overview presentation. Learning objectives for this particular session want you to become familiar with the scope of the document, the intended audiences, and the overall organization of the manual. Learn a little bit more about the key concepts, and then, as I had mentioned, really focus more on operational and quality of service concepts and methodologies. So what is the TCQSM? Talking a little bit about the history and the need for the document, in the 1990s, when the Transit Cooperative and Research Program at the federal level was established, the transit industry really lacked a comprehensive document on how to address transit capacity and quality of service. There had been a number of different research reports over the years on various topics, but there was no single source of information. At the same time, agencies and FTA performance measurement systems were just focused on operator-oriented measures. They were really normally cost-oriented measures. They hadn't really been addressing quality of service from the passenger's point of view, which obviously has an impact in the end with respect to ridership. In contrast, back in 1950, the auto mode had the first edition of the Highway Capacity Manual and its associated capacity calculation methods and user-oriented performance measures. And hence there was a strong feeling that there was a need to have a transit manual as a counterpart when competing for transportation funding. So in terms of the TCQSM development, there have been 3 editions to date, starting with the first edition in 1999 that was just published as a web document. And it, at that point in time, just was a synthesis of the previous research. It did introduce a quality of service framework for the passenger's point of view for the first time. The second edition, which emerged 4 years later, actually applied the quality of service framework, incorporated some gap-filling research, added a chapter on ferry capacity, and at that point in time became TCRP's best-selling report. And then 10 years after that, in 2013, the current edition, the third edition, was published. That at that point in time, there was work done through a series of focus groups to start to get input from users of the second edition, what they would like to see in the next edition, what were some of the shortcomings of the second edition, what added things should be addressed. In the third edition, there was also some added TCRP research that was funneled in to the third edition. So what is the TCQSM today? It's really a fundamental reference document that defines transit service quality from the passenger's point of view. It presents methods to evaluate transit speed, reliability, capacity, and also provides guidance on sizing elements of transit stops and stations, applying the capacity and quality of service concepts in the document. The intended audiences are several, ranging from transportation planners to traffic engineers, transit operational staff, design engineers, researchers, and students. Several of the universities, particularly teaching graduate transit planning classes, are now using this as a primary textbook with respect to its ability to provide a lot of information, a lot of guidance with respect to basics on how to evaluate transit capacity and quality of service. And then again, another key thing here is that the document includes all conceivable transit modes as well. So in terms of potential applications, we've identified 7 of them here on this slide, ranging from training, staff new to the industry, university students, as I had mentioned. It's a very important reference document. There is a glossary, the most comprehensive glossary related to transit terms that has been developed. It provides guidance on use of simulation, application of transit preferential treatments on urban streets, how to incorporate passenger quality of service and service standards development, how to apply the concepts to do service evaluation, what if questions. There's a lot of examples in the document that illustrate how to apply the principles and the methodologies included. And then for planning and design applications, ranging from sketch planning all the way into alternatives analysis, as well as specific modal facility design. So, as I had mentioned, there are 5 key concepts presented in the manual. And the first one is quality of service. As I mentioned, in this particular manual, it's intended to reflect the passenger's point of view. It's intended to supplement operator cost-based measures that historically had been applied by agencies to evaluate the effectiveness of their services. Again, it's critical that there be a balance between the service passengers that ideally um, uh, would like to see on service, and then the service operators with what they can afford to provide given the overall service demands. And quality of service has two main components: transit availability and comfort and convenience. Availability, whether transit is even an option for a trip, and if it is an option, what are the comfort and convenience factors weighing into a person's decision to choose transit for a certain trip. Moving on to capacity, um, various definitions of transit capacity, but again, the basic concept is to identify the maximum number of vehicles, persons, or both that can travel past a particular location in a given period of time under specified conditions, ranging from maximum or theoretical capacity, um, which normally is not used for planning and design, but that's one end of the spectrum, because maximum capacity assumptions would result in unstable operations, very similar to the level of service F scenario on the highway side, versus what's known as design or achievable capacity, which is really the focus of the TCQSM procedures. You also have capacity broken out by vehicle type, whether it's a bus, whether it's a rail line, whether it's a ferry vessel. Um, Also, passenger capacity per certain types of vehicles for various modes, and then multiplying vehicle times passenger capacity to get person capacity. So all of these are further identified with respect to each of the modes in the document. Concept 3 relates to speed and reliability. Um, it's not addressed in the title, but certainly speed and reliability are influenced by transit capacity. Um, and again, it's even though small and mid-sized agencies really in general don't have capacity issues, but speed and reliability are important considerations for all sides of agencies. And again, travel time and reliability do have an influence on mode choice and satisfaction with transit service. Speed and reliability influence the number of vehicles that are needed to provide service on a route at a given headway, which then impacts routes operating costs. And reliability is being addressed in a current TCRP project, the 842 project, that is assembling a reliability guidebook related to fixed route bus service, which will serve as an input into the 4th edition of the TCQSM. Definitions as a 4th concept. The manual has, as I had mentioned before, the most comprehensive glossary of terms in the industry in any document. One of the things that it does provide also is some guidance with respect to applying default values for different concepts and measures versus local values if they're available, stressing that local usage should prevail. But a very interesting section with respect to definitions in the document. Local data, the manual over time has evolved to provide a real good source of physical and operating characteristics of a wide variety of transit modes: bus, rail, ferry, ropeway, and with respect also to ridership associated with different modes and levels of service. Also with respect to applications of equipment and technology and the like. Right now, the 4th edition has envisioned when it would be put together in the next few years will probably include a component on automated vehicles and connected vehicle technology, which wasn't in play back when the third edition was put together. But again, illustration here that local values should be applied as inputs to TCQS methods where possible, but there are a series of default values that are available. So what's included in the TCQSM? There's a total of 12 chapters broken out into 4 major sections. There's a user's guide up front, which is very helpful, and then 3 chapters related to concepts, modes and services, operations, and quality of service, and then 6 chapters related to modal calculations of capacity, as well as a quality of service chapter across all of the modes, and then 2 reference chapters, one a glossary and then an index of terms. The organization of the document, the chapters, the 12 chapters that are technical, actually the first, chapters 2 through 10, move from less technical to more technical information, starting with an introduction of what's addressed in the chapter, moving to basic concepts, and then specific methodologies, and then references to find more information, including example applications in the methods chapters. Again, there are computational methods related to each of the methods chapters. And it's really not intended for the reader to review the whole document, that it's a reference document, and certainly based on what you have interest in, capacity, quality of service, certain modes, you can zero in, particularly with the user's guide up front, to see where you need to go to a particular chapter to get information with respect to concepts and methodologies, computational examples, and the like. Now, the tools for applying the third edition is that in addition to the user's guide, there is a PDF version of the document that has hyperlinks to many reference documents that has been extremely useful to people over the years. Also, another exciting feature on the third edition is a series of spreadsheets to perform multimodal quality of service and bus, rail, and ferry capacity calculations. I've applied, for example, they have a bus speed and capacity spreadsheet that allows you to do sketch planning assessment on the capacity of an exclusive bus lane or some exclusive bus lane very quickly without doing more extensive simulation analysis. But there's a number of spreadsheets that are included at the back of the document on a CD that are available to the user. And then in addition to this overview presentation, there are chapter-specific PowerPoint presentations which we'll make available on the website for your information as well. So in terms of the user's guide, up front, it's a roadmap to the rest of the document. It talks about the 5 concepts, the purpose, the audiences. It provides some guidance on international use. Again, the values. This document was really developed applying data methodologies applied in North America, US, and Canada. So it's not really reflective of different transit service characteristics in African countries, for example, but has really served as a framework for other countries, other organizations putting together their own handbooks related to transit capacity and quality of service. So the mode and service concept chapter 2 presents an introduction to all of the transit modes applied in North America and how the service utilizing these modes can be provided. It breaks out mode and sub-mode definitions for different types of bus service, breaks out demand response service from fixed route bus, van pool, all of the potential rail modes, as well as ferry service. It also talks about operating these modes in different operating environments, mixed traffic, semi-exclusive, exclusive, grade separated. For example, semi-exclusive would include what's known as the bat lane concept that's being applied related to quite a few of the bus rapid transit lines around North America where you've got right turning vehicles sharing the lane with buses. That's addressed, as well as these others. Different service patterns are discussed. This graphic on this slide shows you differences and stop locations with respect to local bus, bus rapid transit, or limited bus service, and express bus. Moving on to Chapter 3, Operations Concepts. Again, the focus here is talking about all of the capacity, speed, and reliability concepts. It includes estimating impact of external factors on ridership. Why is transit capacity important? Well, certainly, as I had mentioned before, the factors that influence capacity also influence speed and reliability, which subsequently impacts operating costs, passenger satisfaction, and in the end, ridership. It helps with respect to managing passenger loads and design standards for that, understanding the impact of operational changes that impact dwell time and the speed and capacity. Special event service planning as well as something that's addressed in the manual in this particular section. Person capacity, I've already talked about that. Again, it's the maximum number of people that can be carried past a certain point under a certain time period. And again, all of the factors involved with that particular definition. And this particular table shows you, this is a flow chart that identifies, how you would proceed ahead and estimate design person capacity, starting with initial data collection on a number of different factors, estimating passenger demand, looking at the fare collection method, the presence of traffic signals and the like, and all of the different factors as you go down the list here to, in the end, calculate the design vehicle passenger capacity versus vehicle facility or line capacity based on the particular mode, and then those combined would be design person capacity. So vehicle capacity, I've already defined that. Again, it's defined by different names based on the mode and situation. You have line capacity, typically identified for the different rail modes, vessel capacity related to ferry and the like. And again, I've mentioned the concept of overall design capacity, which the procedures of the TCQSM focus on, versus maximum capacity. One of the things that is addressed in this chapter is the concept of passenger traffic density, which is the passenger miles per route mile. and reflects the ability of different modes to serve passenger demands. This particular bar chart relates or identifies the range and the median of weekday passenger traffic density and passenger miles per route mile. When it's measured for the peak hour in the maximum load segment, it directly calculates capacity, and if it's measured for longer periods of time and distances, it's more reflective of overall demand and average loading over the length of a route. But again, there's a series of bar charts related to different concepts in this particular chapter, like this one. And again, another flow chart on various factors influencing transit speed. You have grab that. Doesn't want to come down. Okay. You have everything from a guideway type initially to number of stops and how you would work through the calculations to apply the impact of transit preferential treatments, acceleration, deceleration characteristics to identify overall delay for the vehicle related to the guideway type, and then based on the number of stops, dwell time, which then translates into passenger service time, running time. They all end up identifying a travel time rate and then speed in the end being estimated. And then this is another bar chart that shows the variation, and again, this is back in 2010. Remember, this document was published in 2013, so we have a little bit dated values, but still pretty applicable when you look at things, you know, in total. These are values coming out of the National Transit Database at the time, but you can see the average system speed, revenue miles divided by revenue hours for the different modes. And again, this particular chart, which has been modified and enhanced and is going into the new reliability guidebook being assembled, shows you all of the different factors influencing transit reliability with respect to internal factors that the transit agency has under control versus those external factors such as environment and roadway conditions that the agency does not have control over, both of which need to be addressed to address reliability. And then there's a series of graphics talking about the impact of time of day variations and transit demands, where there are different demand patterns related to different types of services in different locations. You see in this particular slide that Wausau, Wisconsin, that has a particular major manufacturer in town where there is more peaking of local bus service than in some of the other cities, particularly New York City. You can see the difference with respect to time of day variation. And again, it's important to realize that there can be different peak period variation in transit demand. Designing for average peak hour loads, as shown here in this particular diagram, may result in overcrowding during the peak of the peak, and hence a balance with respect to what you should be designing for. Also, what are some of the external factors on ridership demand in the chapter? It's important to realize that the manual is not a ridership estimation manual, but does present general relationships of demographics and land use density and TDM strategies on potential future demand. And this particular table shows the impact related to the base condition of different densities on the likelihood of using transit and overall transit demand. And also how critical bus stop dwell time can impact bus facility capacity, where a critical bus stop, if it has a high dwell time, can really drive the bus facility capacity on a street. impacting the actual headways and the bus bunching involved. Moving on to Chapter 4, the quality of service concepts, with respect to addressing a broader set of transit performance measures, and then within that a smaller set of quality of service factors and a framework. Again, quality of service measures based on availability and also comfort and convenience. And how to measure quality of service for fixed route transit, some of the methodologies that have been applied to do sub-area assessment as well as corridor level evaluation, including multimodal transit level of service. There's been some separate national cooperative research program work on multimodal level of service analysis on urban streets. The manual inputted the transit component of that into that particular separate research effort, but that's provided with respect to insights in the manual. Demand response transit quality of service, particularly with respect to service availability, is identified. And then a lot of potential application examples are included in Chapter 5. Moving on to Chapter 6, bus transit capacity, you have a number of different bus-specific concepts presented, how to address transit preferential treatments. There is a evaluation method to identify bus capacity, a speed forecasting method, as well as different applications examples, and also a dwell time data collection procedure, as well as some assessment of the impact of bus bunching on capacity. Demand response transit includes capacity as well as relating ridership demand to capacity provisions. Rail transit capacity includes basic fundamentals addressing the impacts that train control and signaling systems, train operations have on overall capacity. There's a general methodology useful for most rail submodes, but specific calculation methodologies related to commuter rail, automated guideway transit, and ropeway, which would be applicable to ski lifts as well as tramways and the like. And then the role of simulation and rail capacity analysis, given that much of the capacity analysis in recent years related to rail has been moving towards simulation analysis. And then ferry transit capacity, as I had mentioned, was added for the second edition. It includes an overview of ferry service and terminals, ferry scheduling, vessel capacity of the docks at the berths on the vehicle, looking at passenger versus auto ferry capacity with some examples on how to calculate capacity. Station capacity in Chapter 10 talks about the methods for sizing the passenger circulation elements of different transit stations. It talks about the role of ADA requirements, emergency evacuation requirements, security considerations, the different types of station types and configurations ranging from a simple bus stop all the way up to a major transit terminal, such as the Port Authority bus terminal in New York City. It talks about different passenger circulation concepts and vehicle circulation and storage, and in the end breaks down different station elements and their individual capacities, everything from a doorway to an escalator, an elevator, a vending machine, a fare gate. All of them have different capacities that impact overall processing capacity through station areas. Again, more applicable to the larger terminal facilities. And then again, the role of simulation in station planning and design and simulation is being applied more often with respect to the larger facility design efforts. And then Chapter 11, the glossary and symbols, has a comprehensive transit glossary. So with respect to more information, um, uh, you'll be able to go online to the TRB Publications website, and we've um, got some addresses here for you to access, in particular the middle one, to search to TCRP Report 165, which is the third edition, to actually download a colored copy of the manual. You can also purchase a hard copy from the TRB bookstore if you'd like. Um, One of the things that I had mentioned also we'll be doing is posting the more detailed chapter PowerPoint presentations with the overview presentation onto the Cutter webinar website, so you'll have access to those. And then in the last piece of my presentation, I want to talk a little bit about relevant TCRP research following the TCQSM third edition, which was published back in 2013. And since then, there has been a lot of research done that will be input into the fourth edition. Um, in particular, 7 synthesis projects. You can see here everything from starting to address electronic passenger information signing, real-time information signing, to battery electric buses, to integration of bike sharing into transit facilities, transit supportive parking policies and programs. Um, these synthesis projects involve doing a national survey of transit agencies and other jurisdictions on how they've been addressing these topics in recent years. And then the projects identified, and there are 5 of them, are more extensive research efforts, normally taking upwards of 2 years, with some pretty sizable budgets, upwards of $300,000, $400,000 a piece, where there's a need to really probe in more detail on the subject matter. Ones that have been done since 2013 include looking at the characteristics of premium transit service that affect mode choice. There's a guidebook now on evaluating passenger travel time related to certain transit investments, linking transit agencies and land use decision making. There's a guidebook on transit supportive roadway strategies that follows up on a report that I served as the PI for on bus and rail preferential treatments on urban streets. And then the A42 project, which will be completed in September and hopefully published by the end of the year, that for the first time provides a guidebook related to fixed route bus transit service reliability, and a lot of great new information on that that includes probably the most extensive literature review that has ever been done. Over 150 documents were reviewed as an input into that, as well as a survey that was sent out to all fixed route bus operators in North America and some selected ones overseas, such as in the UK and Singapore and other areas. And in addition to that, there have been some added research that hasn't been funded yet that the Transit Capacity and Quality of Service Committee thinks is very important. Doing a updated synthesis on service evaluation standards, really getting out and kind of doing more focus group work on the applications of the Transit Capacity and Quality of Service Manual. That was done for the second edition. This would be done for the third edition. And then more substantial projects looking at more work on valuing passenger travel time, broadening the evaluation of ferry transit capacity, providing some guidance with respect to predicting bus speeds and mixed traffic. There's spreadsheet tools and methodologies developed to look at the impacts in exclusive lanes and semi-exclusive lanes of bus operations, but not necessarily in mixed traffic. And then all of this would lead into the development of the Transit Capacity and Quality of Service Manual, 4th edition, with 2023 being a target date for its completion, which would be 10 years after the 3rd edition in 2013. So with that, just wanted to acknowledge a couple of people, in particular Paul Rias, who is the current chair of the Committee on Transit Capacity and Quality of Service. Vicki Perk, who is our moderator today, serves as the vice chair of that committee and the future chair of that committee. But Paul was the one that really took the lead in the 3rd edition. I was a co-investigator. He was the principal investigator, and he put together the vast majority of this presentation, which is available for use by everybody to share with your clients and staff. And again, the team that was involved in the 3rd edition included Kittleson and Associates as the lead, Parsons Brinkerhoff, which is now WSP USA, KFH Group, the Texas Transportation Institute, and ARIP. And with that, I think we've got about 15 minutes left for Q&A.
Okay, thank you. And before, Alan, thank you so much. And before I hand it back over to Vicki, I would just like to remind everybody how to ask a question. That Q&A box is located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions and or comments, and we'll get to the Q&A. So, Vicki, do you want to go ahead and go through some questions with Alan?
Sure. Before, I would just like to point out, too, that the Committee on Transit Capacity and Quality of Service, does have a call for papers out for the upcoming 2019 TRB annual meeting. And the call is for any, it does include some of the topics that Alan discussed in his last couple of slides, so some of the upcoming research questions and needs. It also includes a bullet for applications of the manual, particularly transit agencies that have used the manual in some way. We're always looking for information on that. So I do encourage anyone in the audience or anyone you may know of an agency that has had a good application that they could perhaps consider submitting a paper to TRB. One question I have here, has there been any consideration of measuring vanpool quality of service?
Well, vanpool and carpool is addressed a little bit in the manual with respect to demand response type service. There's a series of quality of service measures that were initially developed in the 2nd edition. By the way, at that point in time, the quality of service framework on the demand response side was a numerical system, whereas the quality of service on the fixed route side was A through F, a format similar to the highway capacity manual, and which, by the way, just very quickly on that topic, in Florida there was initially directed by the Florida Department of Transportation to do on a regular basis transit quality of service or level of service assessment related to the transit systems. And there were emerging issues that the fact that, on the highway side, level of service A is good in that there's no traffic and hence, you have a free flow facility, whereas level of service A related to transit availability is not very good in that there's nobody on board the vehicle. So there was a dichotomy that was emerging that in the end, for the 3rd edition, led the committee and its consultant to back away from the A through F system related to fixed route and also from the numerical system related to demand response. But good point that there has been some supplemental research work done in recent years related to travel characteristics of carpool, vanpool, other specialty modes, and certainly more work on the concept would be appropriate for the fourth edition. But no specific quality of service measures. And Vicki, I know, unless you've got some added insights from your knowledge.
No, nothing additional to add there from me. Alan, you did speak about some of the upcoming research needs and priorities for things to be addressed in the next edition of the manual. Do you have anything to add on that, or perhaps and speak to maybe one of the single most important things that will be important for the next edition?
Well, I think one of the things that that the committee has started to talk about is with the rapid evolution of automated vehicles. AV shuttles, transit AV shuttles are now being demonstrated, tested around the country. Numerous examples of that. In relatively soon, some systems will move into revenue operation. And the whole role that connected vehicle technology has on operationalizing transit signal priority at intersections, hopefully making it more efficient in the end. Certainly looking at putting together a white paper on the topic to be addressed at the committee meeting in January on the potential role that AV shuttles connected vehicle technology should play in the fourth edition, that could include a recommendation to do a research project or a synthesis, most likely a research project on the topic proposed to TCRP to be funded next year. Again, there's a couple of years window in here to do some more research to go into the third edition, into the fourth edition, which most likely a application for research dollars for that, I would say would probably be submitted no later than 2020 if the document is to be finished by 2023. So we've got a couple of years where we could have some more research done that could serve as an input into that fourth edition. I don't know, does that answer it, Vicki?
No, sure,
That's
thanks.
a little bit of a roundabout response.
Also, I know that for me, anecdotally, I hear over the years of how agencies have used the manual in their own planning efforts, and as well as how students have used the manual. And of course, that's something that on our committee we're always trying to find out. Sometimes agencies are making use of it, but they're using it internally, and it's not necessarily something that we're finding out about at conferences and things like that. That's why, of course, we include that in our call for papers. But I don't know, Alan, can you think of any other examples of agencies and how they've used the manual recently, or just anything anecdotal?
Well, I think uh, moving ahead with the synthesis on applications of the third edition to get input on how the different transit agencies and others are applying the procedures, the tools in the document is probably the most important research that could be funded as an input into the fourth edition, so that we see if there's a need for any restructuring of the document with respect to how it's presented to facilitate its use. So that's important. I think one of the things that has evolved in recent years is FTA wanting to see projects, agencies, consultants apply the procedures in the document as they're proceeding ahead and finalizing facility operational plans and basically design documents related to new and expanded facilities, operational lines. The Transit Capacity Quality Service Manual is referenced in FTA's project construction manual as a reference, as a tool that should be applied with respect to sizing, verifying the need for facility improvements. Most recently, there's been a bigger focus on FTA funding of core capacity improvements in some of the larger cities, being able to apply some of the capacity principles, in particular to enhance simulation models, to actually see what's needed with respect to added core capacity improvements. So FTA is really starting to get involved with respect to promoting the use of the document related to its funding programs.
Okay. There is another question here. Does the manual consider customer feedback? For example, Wi-Fi may make for higher customer satisfaction with all other factors being the same.
Yes, the committee has a website available that anybody can access to provide comments. On a regular basis, on a yearly basis, the committee considers minor modifications, documentation if there's something that let's say that there was something missing in a calculation or in a step, in a data value per se, with respect to an errors and omissions update on a yearly basis based on input from the users. Certainly, that forum is available for anybody to share their insights with respect to what should be addressed in the next edition of the manual, and also with respect to added research going into that next edition of the manual. And one of the things that the committee is really looking to do is to continue to expand its friends, which will allow, obviously, more opinions to be expressed. The committee normally would have a meeting during the middle of the year, and then has a meeting at the TRB annual meeting every year. And certainly those are forums to provide input as well. One of the things, Vicki is the paper review chair right now for the committee, and one of the real encouraging things in recent years has been the number of papers that have been submitted on transit capacity and quality service topics for the TRB meeting, which when I was the chair way back when, about 15 years ago, we only had about 15 to 20 papers, and now we're approaching 50. So there's really increased interest in the topic. I think some of that is reflecting of people using the document and questions coming up and ideas with respect to doing added research to clarify things, to expand the database, to expand, enhance procedures. So that's all encouraging. So there's a lot of different forum opportunities for the user and the non-user just to get information and to share insights on what should be included in the next edition.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Unless somebody has one more question to fit in, I think we're under 2 minutes, but there are no other questions at the time. So I don't know, but thank you very much, Alan, for your presentation, and thanks to everyone who was participating. And I think I'm heading it back over to Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Vicki, and thank you so much, Alan, for the great presentation today. This webinar is being recorded, but I would like to call your attention to our next Cutter Transportation webcast that is scheduled for July 26th at 12 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time. This presentation is about one of the articles included in the Journal of Public Transportation in our special edition on the future of public transportation. This article is entitled, Is it time for a public transit renaissance? Navigating travel behavior, technology, and business model shifts in a brave new world. It will feature Adam Cohen and Susan Shahan from the University of California, Berkeley. Again, thank you so much. I will open up the evaluation. If you could take a few moments to complete that evaluation, as the feedback included is very valuable to not only Alan, but to the entire Cutter webcast series. Again,